Yo, what is going on, guys? We are back today for another video. So this is the next part in the 6-part series where we rank the top 5 best champions in each and every single class as of summer 2025. So for the format of the series this time around, we're going to be primarily focused on the 7 stars, but once we rank the top 5 7 stars, we will jump to the 6-star class and call out any notable 6 stars that aren't 7 stars yet, and rank them what's left there. But the game is definitely moving away from 7 stars, so that is why these videos are more, the game is moving towards 7 stars and away from 6 stars, so that's why these types of content are more focused on 7-star roster. And because those 6 stars should eventually become 7 stars anyways. But yeah, before we get into it, one final disclaimer is just that, of course, this is all completely my opinion. My opinion from playing the game for almost 10 years and making content on it pretty much every single day. I like to think that I do have quite a wealth of knowledge built up, but that's not to say I'm always right or I know everything. You know, my knowledge is all shaped by my experience of playing the game my way and pulling the certain champions that I've pulled and doing the rank ups that I've utilized. You know, two people are going to have the exact same shaped experience by playing the game, because we all play the game differently. We've all pulled different champions. We've all ranked up different champions, and etc. So it's totally cool to disagree. We should not be having the exact same identical lists. You know, if we do, cool, but like there should be some differences, and that's totally fine. Just be cool about it. You know, I would love to hear you rank your top 5 tech champs, but there's just no need to cause hate or drama in the comments about it. You know, let's just keep things nice and chill down there in the comment section. Healthy discussions. All right, let's go ahead and get into the rankings. So for the 7-star tech champions, coming in at number 5, surprise, surprise, we have a tie. So the tie is between Prowler, is the first champ I have at number 5. So, you know, I think Prowler is a phenomenal champion. Some of the best power control that we've seen in, you know, recent history coming out of the tech class. You know, it's really interesting because that power control existed in the game, you know, way before Prowler came out, but it never existed in a champion's kit. You know, it was only ever a synergy, the Captain America Infinity War tech synergy, that was basically put into a Prowler's kit. And I always thought that synergy was very powerful. So for Prowler to have that, you know, basically how it works is as soon as the opponent throws a bar of power, whatever power they had remaining is gone. It's drained, and they're power locked after for 1.5 seconds. And, you know, depending on how much of that power is drained, that helps to ramp up Prowler, which is cool. You know, Prowler also has some super solid base immunities with Bleed and Incinerate. That's really nice. And, you know, all of his damage type is Rupture based, all physical Rupture based damage. He does apply this Incinerate, but it's, you know, you're not applying that for damage. You're just applying that to, you know, get a greater special 2 burst damage off. That's really the goal in applying, you know, that Incinerate. Because this right here, if a personal rupture expires on an incinerated opponent, it explodes. So you want to get those explosions, especially with the special 2. You know, the only real thing about Prowler is you really want him to be not only awakened, but the higher the sig, the better, because that's going to increase your critical rating. And so Prowler does not crit. He's another one of those types of champs that does not crit. And instead, you know, he applies rupture damage, which are great. And also his medium attacks are non-contact pneumatic blasts that cannot be evaded. So that's cool. So yeah, when Prowler would land a crit, he instead inflicts a rupture passive. So really, really great damage source, great power control, great immunities. Prowler's awesome, man. The problem with Prowler, I find, is just that, like, for example, he's not really that good for Onslaught, which sucks. Because if he was good for Onslaught, like, I would just think of Prowler as such a better champion if he was better for that matchup. Not to say he can't do it, but it's not the best. It's not nearly as good as like Jack or Bastion is going to do, you know, against Onslaught. But yeah, man, Prowler just has so much utility. He's awesome, man. He's really awesome. The special one will apply a Pursuit as well, so you can fully counter evade, not just on the mediums. Yeah, man, Prowler, great champion. Just so much utility. Top 5 best tech champs. for sure. Who's he tied with, though? And that's Stark Spidey. Now, this might not seem like a fair tie, because Prowler, we just went over his kit, he has way more utility than Stark Spidey. It's not even close. And I totally admit that. 1000%. But what Stark Spidey has is damage. So much damage that can actually be a form of utility, and that allows Stark Spidey to take so many matchups. Like Onslaught. Stark Spidey can do Onslaught better than Prowler can. On average, I would say. And it also allows Stark Spidey to do so many matchups that Prowler would never, typically attempt, like Photon. Like, Stark Spidey is so great for Photon. Stark Spidey, he is definitely the oldest champion on this list, without a doubt. Stark Spidey, he came out in 2017, a long time ago. He's very old, but he remains so tried and true to this day. Stark Spidey is undisputably one of the absolute best battleground attackers overall. He's just so versatile, and there's so many different matchups that he can take. It's amazing. Like Onslaught, Enchantress. These are really big, annoying defenders, and Stark Spidey is tackling them, Enchantress at least, outside of that class wheel, which is really awesome. Bullseye, another one outside of the class wheel that Stark Spidey can take, which is a really fun fight. A really fun fight. And again, it's because he hits so hard, and Stark Spidey does have some utility. His evade, Stark Tech AI to help him evade specials, that's definitely some nice utility. It would be nicer if it was a higher % chance, but it's still good. And then, one of the best things about Stark Spidey is this heavy attack with the power drain. It's, again, his power control is not nearly to that of Prowler's, but just having some power control when you really need it on that heavy attack is just so clutch, dude. It's so clutch. Stark Spidey is so old, but he has managed to age like fine wine. Stark Spidey was created years, 5 years before Battlegrounds was ever a thing. And somehow he's one of the absolute best attackers for the mode. If that doesn't warrant a top 5 on this list, I don't know what does. So yeah, that's top 5, Stark Spidey and Prowler. Alright, getting into number 4, we actually have another tie. This tech list was difficult, because there's a lot of good tech champions. So, tied for number 4, we have Red Skull. Up first, dude, Red Skull is awesome. He got a buff. Red Skull used to suck. He used to be so bad. I believe he came out alongside Korg and Heimdall. It's like a triple champ month. And I believe that was also like the month I came back. I had like quit YouTube, quit the game for like a few months in 2018. So that must have been when this guy came out, right? 2018? Yeah. I think it was like August of 2018, I want to say. So like I had taken like the summer off from the game, like a few months off. And then I came back. And then we had Heimdall, Red Skull, and Korg. And Red Skull was just atrocious. I still remember watching one of Brian Grant's streams. He was doing, I think it was 6.2 itemless. And he was fighting like this Havoc with Red Skull. And the fight would take like 10 plus minutes to do. But he could do it and finish with like full health. Nowadays, Red Skull is so much better. His buff was phenomenal. And dude, like Red Skull. So now he's immune to nullify, fate seal, and stagger effects from champions. What that means is like the buffet node will still totally get Red Skull, but like Sim Supreme's nullify in his kit will not work on Red Skull because it's a champion ability. Against mutants, his ability actually cannot be modified, which is phenomenal for Dominoes. You start the fight with armors, and then you gain armors when either champion fills a bar of power. Also, on every 10th basic attack, you gain an armor up, which is the best part about this awakening ability. You just want to be awakened. High sig doesn't matter. While charging, you gain some power. This is very irrelevant in the grand scheme of Red Skull's kit. And for each armor, he's getting attack, crit resistance, energy resistance. But the real thing is with his loop plus heal block on heavies. That's really nice. But it's you build a special 2 with as many armors as you can have. 10 is the cap. Ideally, you have 10. You drop that special 2. You apply a bunch of shocks that are doing a ton of damage, and then you throw the special 1. That's going to pause the shocks and deal some direct damage as well. And like you just pause those shocks and you just do so much damage. It's fantastic. It's awesome. Plus, you know, every time Red Skull blocks an attack, as long as he has armor, he's going to consume one of those armors and, you know, power drain the opponent. So that's really nice. That's really, really nice. That's some really great power control. All you have to do is block, and they hit your block, and you're power controlling. Like, that is amazing. And speaking of power control, the special 3 drains 100% of the opponent's power, and for every 10% of max power drained this way, gain an armor buff. So I first realized Red Skull could even do this in Alliance War. I was fighting a crazy power-gaining Mangog, and it was hell of a matchup with a tactic making it a lot harder and everything, and it was rough. I even died, but like this ability was so clutch in that matchup. Just being able to fully power drain him completely, 100%, 3 bars. Like I have 3 bars, he has 3 bars. I throw mine, boom, he has none. Like that is amazing. So dude, Red Skull, just fantastic. You know, fantastic champion all around, great attacker, and of course after the buff, great defender too. Super duper annoying. Again, on that special one, he gets a little auto block thing, so you can't just immediately punish. You have to use a heavy attack. Special 2 gives him unstoppable now, so that's annoying too. So, like, regardless whether you bait the special 1 or special 2, there's some type of defensive threat you got to deal with. So that makes Red Skull, you know, pretty solid defender. Very, very, very good all-around champion. And that's Red Skull at our number 4 spot, tied with who? And that is actually another shock-based champion in Shuri. So, I feel like Shuri has fallen off lately. And I think the main reason for that is just there's a lot of really great tech champs, and you know some of the newest mutant champions are immune to shock, or shock just is not going to help you. Like Onslaught, you'd be screwed if you brought Shuri against Onslaught. Or you know, Dust. I believe Dust is shock immune, right? Let me make sure on that. I don't want to be spewing misinformation. Is it shock, poison, bleed? Yeah, okay, I thought so. Yeah, so like another defender in Dust, where shock, you know, is not going to get you anywhere. But, you know, Shuri does not just solely rely on shocks. You know, once you throw that special 1, you're going to get some crit passives, get some guaranteed crits, which is really nice. You can start to hit pretty hard. And then, of course, if your opponent is not shock immune, you're going to be applying some shock passives. You know, you can stack up to, I think it's 50 shock debuffs and passives at the same time, and you just have so much damage going. You know, in Acropolis, for example, Shuri was a great champ for that when that first came out. You know, Shuri's still great. She's great for medium, short, and long form fights. I say long form fights is her bread and butter because she can fully ramp and build up and do so much damage, you know, but she's still great in medium fights and in short fights. You know, get to 10 shock debuffs, throw your special 1, you get a ton of guaranteed crits, and then you consume those guaranteed crits, do a ton of damage, apply some shocks, and like you just keep it all refreshed with the specials and heavies. Shuri, I feel like is starting to get underrated. But I still think she's phenomenal. She's really cool because she's actually immune to neutralize. Because her ability accuracy cannot be altered. That makes her immune to neutralize, which is really interesting. She's also immune to shock and precision effects that are not her own. And Shuri cannot land crits without her precisions. And all of Shuri's attacks are non-contact and deal energy damage instead of physical. So it makes her more tricky to parry unless you have a champ, you know, that can parry non-contacts, like Photon, for example. She can do that. One of the really, really cool things about Shuri, and I think like the most underrated thing about her, is her own untouchable. Like if you get really good at skillfully using this as an attacker, it's awesome, dude. You can pull off some really crazy shenanigans with that. I really like it. Shuri's special attacks also cannot be evaded, which is cool. Like if you're fighting an opponent that can evade, you know, and your shock's about to fall off or you're panicking, but you can just throw a special and you know they're not going to evade. And then with the Awaken ability, Shuri can block unblockable attacks. Special attacks. It's not nearly as good as like Kushala can block all unblockables, but yeah, Shuri can block unblockable special attacks if she's awakened, which is definitely a nice piece of utility. And she can get you know, some perfect block chance for each personal armor up with the Sig. You know, just being awakened is what matters here. High Sig, you know, it doesn't matter. But yeah, man, I think Shuri's still a phenomenal all-around champ. Plus, you know, she can definitely be an annoyance on defense. She can definitely be a bit of a stall. But yeah, that is our 4th spot. Shuri and Red Skull tied. All right, let's go for number 3 now. The third best tech character in the game right now. And I think that's Biggity Bastion, dude. So Bastion is a brand new tech champion. And, you know, after seeing X-Men 97, I was really hoping that we would eventually get Bastion in-game. And I'm really, really glad that we did. So, you know, I think Bastion is phenomenal. I think he's such a good attacker. You know, the only thing is that he's not really much of a defender. You know, if he was, he could absolutely go higher up on this list for sure. But just because he's just primarily an attacker, you know, he's not really going any higher. But man, Bastion has a buttload of utility, man. So much utility in this dude's kit. So, you know, he is a robot, kind of. So he does have that immunity or resistance in this case to bleed and poison. So, you know, it's kind of like Omega Sentinel. Like, they still get applied, but then he just gets regeneration, and it cannot be reduced by poison, so that's good. So, whenever he gets bleed, poison, or crush, so, you know, it's going to be against Onslaught specifically, he gains self-repair buff, which just gets regen. So that's really nice. The Sentinel Relic is absolutely what you're going to want to have on this guy. It's going to increase the potency of disintegrations by 10%, and it's doubled against mutants. So you really, really want that Sentinel Relic. And then he has Armor Up passives. The only thing here is that because it's not a debuff, he can't fight Havoc. That's like the only... He can't really do that mutant matchup because of that, which is a little unfortunate. But, yeah, but that grants him some nice armor. Bastion can trigger the parry mastery against non-contact attacks. Like we just said, that's what Shuri has. So Bastion can totally parry those, which is a really, really, really good piece of utility to have. Like, for example, when you're fighting Arnim Zola, that's really going to help against him. I'm not sure how great Bastion is against Zola. I've never tried that matchup, but just the fact that he can do it, you know, that's a great piece of utility to have in your kit. And then, you know, with Bastion, what you want to do is, you know, build up the virus, the infection, and then you're going to drop your heavy attack. You're going to apply a disintegration passive. That's going to be great. Also, with the heavy, you get pursuit passive as well. So that allows you to counter the effects of evade. Against mutants, it's 16 seconds. Against any other champ, it's going to be 10 seconds, which is still a pretty decent duration. Again, you just heavy again to get it back. It's super easy. And that's going to allow Bastion to counter champs like Bullseye. For example, Bastion is actually a great Bullseye counter, which is really cool. And so you get that disintegration up. Then basically, you know, you just build your special 2. You get 1 Fury, and then if you want to make sure you have your infection up as well, then you get 2 Furies. It maxes at 2. These are some pretty potent Furies. And then if you also have the Sig ability on Bastion, that's going to increase the potency of those Furies. And then you just drop a couple special ones, and they just do so much damage. You just do so much damage. You're going to be melting Onslaughts, the Bullseyes, just so many champs. Disintegration, you know, is a very rare and specialty damage over time. There's very few champs in the game that have disintegration. I think it's Bastion, Future Ant-Man, and Punisher 2099. That literally might be it. There might be 1 or 2 other champs I'm forgetting, but like we're talking 5 or less champs in the game that have disintegration. So do you know what that means? I don't think there's any champ in the game that is even immune to disintegration currently yet. You know, there's some champs that can, you know, get around it and kind of mitigate and stuff, but I don't think there is a single champ with disintegration immunity yet. So that's really nice, dude. Bastion, just a really, really solid all-around champion. You can go for the special 3 to get another disintegration if you want to go for like a longer rotation to make the special ones hit even harder. But dude, it's so simple. It's special 2, special 1. Watch your opponent get melted. Like, it's crazy. There's a bunch of safety nets in place for him. He feels very tanky when you're playing him. Yeah. That's Bastion landing at the number 3 spot. Third best tech champ. All right. Number 2. The second best tech champ in game right now. And that's Sentinel, dude. Sentinel recently got buffed with the last Banquet event alongside, you know, Medusa, Deadpool X-Force. And out of that entire event, I still firmly believe that Sentinel's buff was the best, and he is the best of those 6 champions. For me, he is. I really, really like Sentinel now. You know, he's so much better in every regard since he was buffed. You know, Sentinel was never that bad of a champion either. He always had like some decent stuff. It was just a little bit annoying to ramp him. And once you did ramp him, it just didn't really feel worth it. You know, the juice didn't feel worth the squeeze. Now, it totally does feel worth it. And, you know, he also got way more defensive abilities now. Sentinel was always tanky, you know, once he had max analysis. But, you know, now they gave him a massive threat on this special 3. If he throws that special 3, he goes back to full health. That's crazy, dude. That is actually crazy. That's so nuts. And, you know, with the signature ability, when Sentinel would be about to die, so when he drops below 20% of his max health, Sentinel activates 3 armor up buffs, each granting 2600 armor rating for 3.5 seconds, inspiring 1 at a time. So you might be thinking, like, they only last for 3.5 seconds, like, that sounds terrible. And yeah, it does. But something happens when they expire. So each time one of these armor up buffs ends for any reason other than being removed, Sentinel passively gains 90% of a bar of power. So, like, it's so easy for Sentinel to just shoot up right to 3 bars of power. And then, again, if he throws it, all of a sudden, he's right back to full health. So, like, in Battlegrounds, that can totally happen towards the end of the fight. And then, like, the match ends and Sentinel's at full health. And it's like, oh, well, that's embarrassing. You know, and in Alliance War, some strategies have actually been to just throw on an invulnerability boost, purposefully push Sentinel to 3 bars, and just eat it early on in the fight so that he can't activate it later on, because he can only use that special 3 once per fight. So if he's already used it, he can't use it again. But, you know, that's a very scary defensive threat. So, you know, Sentinel, big threat on defense now after the buff. Really great defender. So tanky, you know, good stall. But he's also phenomenal on attack now, especially against mutants. You know, he also has poison. He's always had poison and bleed immunity, but now he has armor break immunity. So that makes it harder for a champion like Medusa to shut him down since he's a robot. Cold Snap and Frostbite immunity too. What does that mean? Oh yeah, Kate Bishop can't just nuke him now, which is fantastic. So that's a great immunity to have. And yeah, it's really, you know, you just hit into their block. Hit into their block. I believe your heavy attack applies an Intimidate to make it a little bit easier to hit into their block. Also applies a shock debuff, so you get some shock damage. But, you know, it's really just to try to ramp that way. That's what made Sentinel, like, the best champion for the invade meta. Because you're already hitting into block to ramp, and that was also giving you power. Like, it was insane. And then, you know, you just throw your special 2 with Sentinel. That applies a bunch of fat incinerates. And again, in the invade meta, what incinerates also do is it lowers block proficiency. So when you're lowering the block proficiency in invade and then hitting into their block, like, it was just so ridiculous, man. But, you know, let's say your opponent is incinerate immune. Well, what do? It's fine. You just go and start spamming your special 1 instead, and you're going to stack up a bunch of armor break debuffs, and you're going to hit ridiculously hard. It's fantastic. Also got that a really, really solid heal block on that special 1 too. So, like, you're able to just throw so many specials once ramped. So you can throw your special 2s for a bunch of damage with the Incinerate, or you can throw your special 1 for other kinds of damage and some nice utility with that heal block. He also has, you know, different damage types like Shock and Incinerate all throughout his kit. So, like, it really depends what you're fighting. But yeah, and also for every 10 analysis charges, you're gaining attack rating, and special attacks cost less power. And the potency of incoming instant damage effects from champion is reduced by 5%. Oh, I never realized that. Oh, so that must be reducing spots damage when I try to nuke him. Interesting. Look at that. I just learned something new about Sentinel. But yeah, man, Sentinel, I think he's the second best tech champ in the game right now. He's so solid. I really like him. I've been tempted to rank for him, but just been holding back. Alright, guys, before we get to the number 1 best option, we have a few honorable mentions. So the biggest one is Arnim Zola. Arnim Zola didn't quite make the list. You know, he's a phenomenal defender. But I think he's pretty bad on attack, to be honest. Like, he can be fun on attack, and he can do some unique things when you line it up perfectly, but it's not easy to line all that up perfectly. Like, typically, when you see Zola do cool stuff, it's just recorded in, like, solo content that probably took a couple tries, and, you know, it's max collar tech, and it's, like, such an unreal scenario that you're not ever really going to see Zola in. normally. Like in Battlegrounds, for example. You know, in Battlegrounds, you're going to draft him, you're going to put him on defense. So, yeah. If this was just a defensive list, Zola would absolutely make it. But attack and defense and everything, you know, he just quite barely doesn't make it. He's still a phenomenal defender. I have him at rank 4. I like him. He's great defender. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, the attack, and it's not to say he's, like, a bad attacker. You know, he's got Bleed and Poison Immunity, which is nice. And, you know, he has a really cool thing of being able to apply the special lock. That's some pretty cool and very rare and unique utility. But that's really about it. That's all he really has, you know, in his offensive kit. But, yeah, honorable mention, Shoutouts to Zola. He almost made the list. Another champ that almost made the list was Ironheart. She was very close. Ironheart, after her bug fix, is really good, for sure. You know, as long as she has that armor up, she's immune to reverse controls, Incinerate, Cold Snap. Really nice. She's a great champ. Just barely did not make the list. A couple other honorable mentions here. Jack-O-Lantern. Jack's phenomenal. You know, really great for Onslaught and Jean Grey. I just feel like outside of his, you know, super meta matchups, he's just kind of lacking compared to a lot of other tech champs. It's kind of how I feel. I wish Jack had some form of power control. If he had a little bit of power control, like on his heavy attack, like Stark Spidey does, oh, he probably would have made the list. But yeah, and then Guardian. Shout out to Guardian. You know, with the Hulkbuster relic, he's pretty insane. He can nuke a lot of stuff in like one special 2 rotation. And then yeah, also shout out to Shocker. Shocker is a really solid champion. Great dual threat all around. Super solid champ. You know, just very different from most tech champs. You know, he's a very weird, odd. He's an odd duck when it comes to the tech class. Outside of like not critting, you know, all of the other abilities are very weird and not really found in the tech class. But Shocker's still pretty cool. So yeah, those are our honorable mentions. Now let's go ahead and get into the #1 best tech champion in the game, and of course, it's Warlock, dude. Warlock. I'm just kidding. Warlock's alright, but he's no future Ant-Man. And future Ant-Man is, without a shadow of a doubt, the #1 best tech champion in the game, undisputed in my mind. Like, there's no other tech champ that comes close to being as well-rounded as future Ant-Man is. There's just not. Like, future Ant-Man, bro, it feels like he has it all. It really does. You know, he's a phenomenal attacker. He's got Disintegration, which, again, we said there's no one really in the game that is immune to that. So that's an incredible damage source. Makes it so powerful, you know. So the damage is phenomenal. And, you know, you can easily increase that damage by just getting into the Surging Swarm. You get 4,200 attack rating. That's a lot. And, you know, once you're in the Surging Swarm, it's so easy to stay in it. So you just get there, boom, massive attack increase. And then, you know, you throw the special 2 when you got the red icon. And if you have 1 or 2 Disintegration, you just do so much damage. It's incredible. So, phenomenal attacker, damage-wise. You know, great champ. But we haven't even mentioned any of his utility yet. So, utility. Power control. I think out of every champ that we listed on this list, I think future Ant-Man has... Does he have the best power control? Like, Red Skull and Prowler both have some good power control, but I still feel like future Ant-Man's is better. I don't know, Prowler's is really good, but they're all different types of power control, you know? But future Ant-Man, like, it flows really well with the way his kit is designed. And, you know, you can play future Ant-Man without ever even having to bait a special from the opponent. You know, that can't be said for Prowler. You have to bait specials with him to utilize his power control. That's how it's triggered, you know. But with future Ant-Man, dude, your opponent can never throw... You can play well enough that your opponent never throws a single special attack. Like, that is insane. It's insane. To have the unique damage source that he has, the potency of damage that he has, paired with that power control, those 3 things alone are like the ingredients for an absolutely incredible tech champion. And future Ant-Man has all 3 of those. with ease, and so much more on top of all of that. So the next thing that he has is glancing. Glancing is so powerful, dude, and it makes him such a tank. He's a Tankosaurus Rex. It is legitimately hard to die with Fam when you're playing him really well and are at like 10 of your nano armors. Like, opponents hit into you, and then the next thing you know, like, they're stunned. And then you can just start attacking, and you glance like all the damage. And if some of the damage didn't get glanced, well, you're just going to get a self-repair buff, and you're going to heal that damage back. Also, with the SIG, you absolutely want Future Ant-Man to be max SIG level, because then you can basically become pseudo-immune to bleed and incinerate. You can reduce the duration by like about 90-some% at max SIG. So that's really, really powerful, because he does not have any base immunities in his kit. So getting that bleed incinerate immunity with the high SIG is really, really good. And then again, whenever one of those effects expires, you gain, again, more healing, more regen. So like, you're just so tanky. It's great. And everything that we've talked about so far has just been Future Ant-Man on attack. All of the stuff that we just said also applies to him on defense. And again, all the glancing, the armors, like, it can get so out of hand so quickly against Fam. Like, the way to get rid of his armors is to intercept. You can totally just get an annoying AI and him not wanting to dash at you. And then all of a sudden, you've been playing the fight for 30 seconds, you've been keeping him at like 1 to 0 nano armors, and then all of a sudden, after like 2 combos, he's at like 5 or 6 of them. And then all of a sudden, he's at like 10 of them. And then all of a sudden, every single hit that you do is just glancing. And that can so easily happen. So easily. So yeah, dude, it's without a shadow of a doubt, Future Ant-Man, the #1 best tech champion in the game. I've been saying that for a long time. Nothing has changed. No champion has dethroned him as a 7-star in the tech class. It's Fam all freaking day at #1, dude. Another cool thing is that Fam is actually a good counter to Yelena, a new skill defender. So that's, just more points in the Fam category. So yeah, in like Alliance War and in Battlegrounds, he can be pretty good against Yelena. So yeah, just all the more stuff for Fam. He's just so good. Maybe I should rank for him. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it a lot. I just would need to sig him up more. But yeah, dude, that is the #1 best tech champion without a shadow of a doubt in the game, Future Ant-Man. All right, that's our tech list. Now let's jump over to some 6-star tech champions and give some shoutouts. So Ghost, #1, Nimrod, #2, and like, that's the most that we're missing. Like, the other champs that we're missing, I mean, are not really the best. We got Darkhawk, Psycho Man, Nebula. Nebula's alright. Green Goblin. Yeah, it's really just the bad tech 6 stars that aren't 7 stars yet. The only really good ones, I would say, are Ghost and Nimrod. Ghost 1, Nimrod 2, Darkhawk 3. Darkhawk's actually pretty underrated. Like, if he was a 7-star right now, and you had him at Sig 200 rank 4, I promise you, he would be a good defender for you. For sure. Without a shadow of a doubt, he would be cooking. But who wants to take him up to Sig 200? Not me. It'd be cool if Darkhawk got some kind of buff, man. I kind of wish it was Darkhawk who got the buff instead of Vision with the Rebirth event. I think he would have been a lot more fitting. Plus, he came outside alongside Night Thrasher, who is the skill champ in that event. So, like, it should have been Darkhawk. But, whatever. Yeah. That is our tech list. So, just to recap, we had Stark Spidey and Prowler at the #5 spot. Then we had Red Skull and Shuri at the #3 spot. Or sorry, at the #4 spot. Bastion at the #3 spot. Sentinel at the #2 spot. And Future Ant-Man, the God, at the #1 spot. And then the champ who just didn't make the list was Mr. Zola here. And my one and only tech rank 4 as well. That should speak volumes to, how good I think he is if he's my only tech current rank 4. But, yeah. Alright, guys, that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for this top 5 list. That is the best tech champions in the game as of 2025 summertime in Marvel Contest of Champions in the Battle Realm, in Legacies, current opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching. All the support on the channel. You guys are the best. Hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you want some more content. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.